And welcome back to All Day Live. We want to take you to Bemidji now to follow up on a story that we started bringing you on Monday. Northern Township, which is just north of Bemidji and includes parts of Lake Bemidji, wants to be its own city. Earlier this year, the township filed an intent to incorporate, which is the first step. They would also, though, need to build their own wastewater treatment facility. There were, it sounds like, plans to work together with Bemidji, but those talks, according to some people, just fell apart suddenly. So now Bemidji is saying that they want to annex the land where this new wastewater facility would go. We heard from Northern Township Monday. We wanted to hear from Bemidji today. So joining us now is the Mayor of Bemidji, Jorge Prince. Thanks for being with us, Mayor.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah, so Northern Township says when we talked to them on Monday, you know, this could have been avoided if they say Bemidji didn't back out of a deal to extend water and sewer services to the township. Is that accurate, or do you see it differently?
I think we see it very differently. For us as a city, this goes back to 2021 when Rutgers Birchmont Lodge, which is the largest resort on Lake Bemidji, was having issues with their sewer system and had actually been in conversations with the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency in regards to the issues they were having. They approached the city and requested city services and in fact acknowledged that annexation would be required and that they were open to that. So that's really how this whole conversation started. And as far as, you know, what the options were that we presented, in 2022, we presented to the Northern Town Board 5 different ideas for how we might be able to get some of this done. And we started working through one option in particular, which included potentially contracting services to Northern Township. And we just weren't able to vet that in a way that made sense for the city or its citizens. So there was never a bona fide offer from the city that we would do that as a course of action. There was no memo of understanding ever executed with Northern Township. There was no contract. There wasn't any of that, simply because it was a point of conversation, an idea that we were vetting out.
And it's interesting because, you know, according to Northern Township and then just some of the different things I've been reading from some residents, you know, the appearance looks different than that, I think. And I don't know, you know, where that's coming from, if it is kind of like, you know, Northern Township saying this, Bemidji is saying that. But, you know, it really, I'm just reading through, there was actually a letter to the editor to the Bemidji paper today that I was reading through. Let's see, and this person who wrote in just says, is basically calling it a power grab. So you're saying that is a false narrative that is out there. And so what is it that you hope can happen? This is tied up in the courts right now, but what is it that you hope can happen here?
Well, first off, you know, when you talk about a power grab, I just think that's a really sad narrative because as I mentioned, this started in 2021. If the city had wanted to do a power grab, would we not have just annexed those properties in 2021 right out of the gate? That's what a power grab looks like, and that's not what the city did, in large part because we were working in partnership with Northern Township. We had joint planning and zoning actually happening at that time, so that's why that didn't occur. Really, where we have a difference of opinion with Northern Township is both the Northern Town Board and the City of Bemidji, our council, agree that sewering Lake Bemidji is the safest and best way to protect that asset for generations to come. We believe as the city that we're best positioned to do that because we have an existing sewer plant. It's an award-winning plant. It has plenty of capacity to sewer the lake. We see building a second plant as a complete waste of taxpayer resource and an additional environmental risk that our community and the lake doesn't need. And so then this becomes back to who is best positioned to do that. That's partially why we are in court right now, is because we have a difference of opinion on that.
Mm-hmm. And so just to be clear, because you know, it's such a layered scenario, and it's hard to kind of follow some of the detail here if you're kind of a casual viewer onto this. But so it sounds to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, so under no circumstances would Bemidji or you as mayor want Northern Township to just build this on their own and do it on their own. Am I reading that correctly?
I mean, I think our point of view is it is a waste of resources and it creates an additional environmental risk. So why do it?
Okay. What are you hearing from residents? And I'll only ask you about the Bemidji residents, obviously, but what are they telling you?
Well, I think the majority of Bemidji residents want to see the lake protected. I mean, that goes back to making sure that this lake that's such at the heart of our community is preserved and kept pollution free. So I think our citizens are very vested in that. Now, I do hear from Northern Township citizens as well, many who are in the affected area, because we're certainly not talking about annexing all of Northern Township. We're simply talking about annexing around the lake so that we can provide service. And many of those citizens actually are agreeable to us annexing them and look forward to being part of the city of Bemidji. Is it everyone? No, of course not. But it's sad to me because some of those folks and some of those voices aren't heard.
And yeah, I think when we had the township administrator on Monday, he had mentioned, I asked him that specific question, is what's support look like in Northern Township? And he actually said the number of 95%. He believes that 95% of the people living there are in favor of this annexation, because to your point, it's been going on long before now. So that, do you think that that's an accurate number?
No, I don't. And I'll tell you what else I find interesting is that there was never a vote in Northern Township about any of this. Because that isn't part of the process. So, you know, when you start throwing out statistics on what the number of citizens are that agree or disagree, there's never been a formal vote on this. Simply some town hall meetings where citizens came forward and expressed their interest. And no doubt the people who came to that, say there were 300 people, certainly were supportive of what the township's doing, but you have 5,000 people in the township.
Mayor, it's in the hands of a judge right now. So can you, give us a timeline. When are we expecting a decision? And then walk us through a couple of different scenarios of how this could go.
Well, I would say that, you know, the judge realizes that there's a bit of a timeline here because the county, Beltrami County, is tearing up a county road, which is where you would want to run the pipe for the sewer system, regardless of which party does it. And that's going to take place this spring. So I think it would be important for both parties to have this solved by then, so one of us knows who needs to do this work. The judge has told us that we will expect a decision sometime early next year. To me, that feels like January or February. I think, you know, you could have several different outcomes. You could have the city prevail with all areas it wishes to annex. You could have Northern Township prevail where it keeps all of that property, or perhaps a judge awards some portion of the annexation area to the city. I think those are probably the three most probable outcomes.
If Northern Township does prevail, are they on their own for this wastewater treatment facility?
I mean, I would assume so. I mean, that's the intent that they have given to everyone, that they intend to move forward with this plan. So that's how I would look at it.
Okay. Is there anything else that you wanted to share with us before we let you go? And we'll continue to follow this. We appreciate you coming on today, but I just want to make sure you get say what you need to say.
The last thing I would just say is, you know, we have a difference of opinion on this specific issue, but regardless of what happens, we're going to remain neighbors one way or the other. And I've really been vocal in trying to say, you know, how we treat each other, how we communicate through this process, in large part will determine what type of healing comes to our community when the decision is rendered.
All right. Mayor Prince, thanks for your time today. Really appreciate it. We'll continue to follow it.
Well, thank you for having me on.
You bet. All right. Take care.